Hello, student. Good morning. Today we will start the basic concept of parasites and host. That is origin of parasitism. Parasitism means two parasites live in the body of host and causing disease. That is called as parasitism. That parasites could not be survive independent life itself. Parasitism in the restricted sense of a small organisms living on or in and at the expense of a larger one probably arose soon after life began to differentiated in the world. It would be difficult, if not impossible, to explain step by step the detail of the process of evolution by which some of the highly specialized parasites reached their present conditions. Parasitism at times has probably grown out of a harmless association of different kinds of organisms. One of the members of the association, by virtue perhaps of characteristics already possessed, developing the power of living at the expense of the other and ultimately becoming more and more dependent upon it. It is easy to understand the general mechanism by which the parasites of the alimentary canal were evolved from free-living organisms, which were accidentally or purposely swallowed and which were able to survive in the environment in which they found themselves and to adapt themselves to it. It is also easy to see how some of these parasites might eventually have developed further territorial ambitions and have extended their aperture beyond the confines of the alimentary canal. The development of some of the blood protozoa of vertebrates, on the other hand, seems clearly to have taken place in two steps. First, adaptation of life in the gut of insects, and second, adaptations to life in vertebrates, fluid or tissues when inoculated by host with skin piercing and blood sucking habits. Kinds of parasites. Kinds means types of parasites. Parasitism is of all kinds and degrees. There are facultative parasites, which may be parasitic or free living at will, and obligatory parasites, which must live on or in some other organisms during all or part of their lives, and which period is prevented from doing so. There are intermittent parasites which visit and leave their host at intervals. Some, as mosquitoes, visits their host only long enough to get a meal. Other, as certain lice, leave their host only for the purpose of molting and laying eggs. Some exotic ticks never leave their host except for the final egg laying venture from which there is no return. Ascaris and intestinal protozoa live in one host from the time they hatch from an egg or cyst until they die. but produce eggs or cysts which escape to the transferred to a new host. Some parasites are such during only part of their life cycles. Botflies, for instance, are parasite only as larvae, hookworm only as adults. The final degree of parasitism is reached in those parasites which live generation after generation on a single host, becoming transferred from host to host only by direct connect. Such are the scab mites and many species of lice. Every gradation is found among all the types of parasites mentioned above. It is sometimes convenient to classify parasites according to whether they are external or internal. External parasites or ectoparasites living on the surface of the body of their hosts, suck blood or feed upon hair, feathers, skin or secretions of the skin. Internal parasites living inside the body occupy the digestive tract or other cavities of the body, or live in the various organs, blood tissues, or even within cells. No sharp line of demarcation can be drawn between external and internal parasites, since inhabitant of the mouth and nasal cavities and such worms mites are burrowing just under the surface of the skin might be placed in either category, definitive and intermediate host. Some parasites pass different phases of their life cycle in two or more different hosts. In a few kinds of flukes, four may be involved. According to a dictionary definition, the host in which the parasite reaches sexually maturity is the definitive host, and those in which it undergoes preliminary development are the intermediate host. Strict adherence to this definition, however, leads to some peculiar situations among the protozoa. For example, since the malaria parasites undergo sexual reproduction in mosquitoes, the mosquito, according to the definition, is the definitive host and man is the intermediate host for trypanosomes. However, if harebrained and Colwick's work on sexual reproduction of blood trypanosomes is confirmed, sisyphiles are the intermediate host and man the definitive host. But in the case of leishmania, in which no sexual reproduction occurs, shall we consider May or sandfly the intermediate host? Because of these difficulties, the writer prefers to use the terms definitive and intermediate for vertebrates and arthropods respectively in relation to protozoan parasites, which alternate in their life cycles between these two types of host, irrespective of where the sexual reproduction, if any, occurs. Any alternative is the avoid that's termed altogether for protozoa, rickettsias, etc., which multiply in both host, and simply to speak of vertebrate and invertebrate host. Effect of parasitism of parasites. Effects of parasitism on parasites. Aside from the toning down of their effects on the host, parasites are often very high modified in structure to meet the demands of their particular environment. As a group, parasites have little need for sense organs and seldom have them as highly developed as do related free living animals. Fixed parasites do not need and do not have well developed organs of locomotion. If indeed they possess any intestinal parasites, do not need highly organized digestive tract, and the tapeworms and spiny headed worms have host this portion of anatomy completely. On the other hand, parasites must be specialized upon to a very high degree to adhere the or to make way of their particular host or the particular host in which they find suitable conditions for existence. Examples of specialization of external parasites are the compressed bodies and backwards projecting spines of liads, which enable them to glide radially between hairs without backsliding. The clasping talons on the claws of lice, the harbored proboscides of ticks, and the tactile hairs of mites. In these same parasites can be observed marked degeneration in the loss of eyes and other sense organs, absence of wings, and sometimes reduction of legs. Internal parasites are even more peculiar combinations of degeneration and specialization. They possess a sort of hooks, harbors, suckers, and boring aperture, yet they have practically no sense organs or spatial organs of location, a very simple nervous system, and sometimes, as said before, completed absence of the digestive tube. This is the basic concept of parasite and host and origin of parasitism. Okay, thank you.